Thank you for joining me today. My name is Nimish and I'm Vice Principal at Wren School within Wellingborough. I'm a Curriculum and Research Lead across the Creative Education Trust, and I'm here to talk to you about collaborative curriculum alignment and how we can grow a trust-wide curriculum framework. So there's many different approaches that trusts are using to curriculum work right now. Some are allowing complete autonomy and some are asking schools to follow a very prescriptive curriculum. But we really need to understand, why do we have a common curriculum and a common assessment framework? What is the benefits of having this in place? While collaboratively working together, we can make it really clear that actually by having these types of frameworks, we can tap into a wider network of amount. We can really start to pull together, working together in different ways, and expertise from a whole range of different schools. You can actually work with one school and say, within this specific curriculum area, you might be having some difficulties, and pull in support from another school within the same trust, or possibly even beyond. And by having a common curriculum framework and having a common assessment framework, those processes can start to take place. What we can do is break down the individual steps that sit within the curriculum that allow people to think about why things are sequenced the way they are, and therefore put proper CPD in place to support staff to get that understanding. Key stage 3 assessment can sometimes be a bit up in the air, and sometimes when we don't work collaboratively on these things, it's difficult to gain a good idea of what we're trying to get out of key stage 3 assessment. And therefore, by having a common assessment framework across a range of schools, we can actually have that in place. And what this leads to is assessment driving curriculum decisions and curriculum driving assessment decisions. So why is curriculum such an important thing to focus on? Well, curriculum is that key lever within a school. It's that key intervention that affects every single student within the school. You could have the best after school club, you could have the best intervention session that runs within the middle of a day with 60, 70, 80% attendance. But the curriculum is one of the few interventions that affects every single student within the school. And getting it into the best version of itself, therefore, is the entitlement of our students. And working collaboratively to get there is one of the best things to do. So why should we do this collaboratively? Why should we work together as a group of schools rather than independently? Well, by working collaboratively, we really get to tap into the expertise of the teachers that exist across a network of schools. When you're working in isolation in small teams, sometimes you get ideas like groupthink, where you're thinking about things in the same way consistently, and innovation starts to die away. What you could actually do by working collaboratively with a whole host of schools is to gain new ideas and new ways and new approaches to the curriculum. Also, if you're trying to come up with expert explanations for the entirety of the curriculum, sometimes that's incredibly difficult to do as a small team. And when you're working as a team of 10 English teachers within one school, you might only be able to get expert explanations for 60, 70% of the curriculum. But scale that up and work across a trust with 80 English teachers within there, all pulling together collaboratively, trying to inform the next steps within our curriculum, trying to gain those expert explanations. And what you get is good curriculum coverage of expert explanations, and ensure that our staff really understand better ways of delivering the curriculum. So some of the persistent problems that exist when you're trying to grow a framework like this across the schools are the idea of lethal mutations, and it can happen in many different ways. If it's written centrally from a trust team, if these curriculums and assessments are written right at the top away from schools, then quite often there's that gap. And therefore people aren't working collaboratively to create this curriculum or these assessments. So it's really important to avoid the idea of lethal mutations, to grow this from middle up, and use middle leaders within schools, use teachers within schools to write the curriculum and write assessments to ensure that they gain good understanding of what they actually are about. That will mean that the curriculum and the assessments that are put in place to support it don't lethally mutate, and you don't end up with a common curriculum framework but uncommon delivery within schools, where you have 11 different versions of that curriculum. So it's so important to avoid these persistent problems of ideas going wrong all of the time because of the fact they haven't been grown and we don't have buy-in at a school level. This leads to the idea of shared solutions. This approach of working collaboratively means that people are working together, solving the same problems that come up time and time again. So say within English, they're getting this idea where different areas and different parts of schools that have instigated this curriculum are hitting the same problems, where things are mutating slightly or people aren't delivering in the way that they expected them to. Then similar problems might be happening in other subjects and they could work together. While that's more generic, you can get subject specific with this too. You end up with schools sharing solutions to problems that they've now had, and similar problems are now happening in other schools within the trust at the same time. And that is the real power of working collaboratively and having a common curriculum and a common assessment framework. This also leads to sustainable development. What we mean by this is that there isn't one person sitting there who owns the curriculum across the trust, or there isn't one person sitting there who owns the curriculum within a school. Instead, what you end up with is a whole host of experts, people that really understand the why that and the why then of the curriculum, and they understand how the curriculum has grown and how it can grow further. By working collaboratively, we gain effectiveness in our teaching, we gain efficacy in our approach and our thoughts around how we can actually improve students, and there's great efficiency with working collaboratively as well. What this means is that the workload isn't centrally put on 2 or 3 people, but spread amongst staff, and that leads to that greater understanding of what can be done to improve outcomes of our pupils. And what we can do here is work within and beyond our normal network. So I'm quite lucky that across my trust I get to work with 11 secondary schools. 3 of them are within Northamptonshire, but some of them go beyond. And actually what we are able to do here is to both make things local for our context, but also get ideas from the world around us and experience that great diversity that's there in the world around us. By working within our normal network and beyond our normal network, we gain great understanding about what we can do to innovate and push forward with our curriculum thinking. There are so many benefits for having a common curriculum and a common assessment framework. But when you first hear those phrases, they seem incredibly scary. It seems like someone saying we're taking the curriculum away from you, or we're taking assessment away from you. But actually what's happening is we're working together as a greater organisation, more than just the individual sum of our parts, to put our thinking together, to grow better explanations, to grow better assessment techniques, to improve overall our performance when it comes to improving the outcomes of the pupils that we serve. So thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you for popping by to this talk, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.